most of the monks in this particular order were all about my age, 20, 25. And I was just curious. I mean, I had this theory that there was a big similarity between psychedelics and experiences that were possible with a lot of meditation. And that was one of the original findings that led me to start looking for a spirit molecule, for a compound in the brain that elicited mystical experience. And I just was wondering how many of these monks got their first glimpse of enlightenment through their own psychedelic experiences. And it was astonishing. I'd say 90% of the monks that I asked, even more. I said, I would ask them, how important were your psychedelic experiences in your decision to become a monk? They said, well, very important. I had my first glimpse of enlightenment during an LSD experience, but it was too fleeting, it was too chaotic. There were too many side effects. It was over. I came down. So a lot of people, well, most of those monks became monks because they wanted to, they wanted to develop that state of consciousness in a more manageable way, and they wanted to sustain it, and they wanted to infuse that state with an ethical lifestyle and a moral lifestyle and a behavioral, system that could be psychedelic in a way. And I think that's why a lot of Westerners have been drawn to Eastern religions. They're kind of psychedelically informed in a way. They come from a meditative foundation, and then kind of there's this kind of trickle down of, well, you have this psychedelic experience kind of at the basis of things, and so then how do you behave, and what are your relationships like thereafter? I worked with these guys off and on for 25 years or so, and they were very encouraging of my research. They shared their own psychedelic experiences with me. They were pretty upfront that they probably would not have become monks if they hadn't had a big LSD trip at some point in their late teens or early 20s. But once I started to write and talk and publish about my findings, especially hypothesizing that there could be some interplay, some interaction, some mutual informing of the psychedelic experience and the meditative lifestyle of the Buddhist community, then they had to sort of draw up. They sort of drew. What's the word? They kind of rebelled against the idea. It seemed non-Buddhist. There is this injuncture in Buddhism to avoid intoxicants. And, as they became higher up in the hierarchy, they needed to be more traditional and more orthodox, and they had to maintain, the catechism, as it were. So, as the younger generation of monks were coming in, and there were questions of transmission and inheritance of the robe, as it were, as the master was dying. They kind of, they really couldn't deal with the truth, which was that the psychedelic experience informed their Buddhism and could, I think, inform one's Buddhism. We kind of parted ways at that point when the scientific model of just asking questions kind of bumped up against the Buddhist model, and an organized religious model at that, of sort of their doctrine and the purity of the teachings. I still think it's a very open question. I think there certainly could be a model or I think there could be some kind of system where, let's say, a monk who's been meditating for 20 years and hasn't had a breakthrough, but is a very ethical, moral, righteous person, could have a controlled psychedelic experience once in his life and show him or her the truth of the teachings, in a really experiential way, which he or she may not have had otherwise. And also it begs the question, too, is a natural enlightenment experience, if it's mediated by DMT, is it real or not? Well, who cares? So, yeah, I think there's a lot of questions in that realm we can talk about later.